Hello and welcome to this week's episode of We Used to Be Journos, the podcast where two media insiders break down broken news. I'm Fran. My co-host is Antoinette Lattouf, and a very warm welcome to all of our new listeners because we're collecting yous.
Oh, it's so good.
And it feels great. And if you are wondering what we do on this show, we do a bit of media literacy, we do a bit of media analysis, we do a bit of media commentary, and we basically like to give people an insider's look into the way that the Australian and the international media functions. Was that a good summary of what we do?
Yeah, I was going to say like we vent and we bitch and we moan.
Oh, we also do that.
But we also give kind of constructive analysis and some gold stars. Like you did the very diplomatic spiel.
I did.
And I was like, we used to be journos, now we mainly bitch about them.
That was a tagline that actually didn't make it into the podcast when we were working out like, what's the tagline? It's like, well, let's go with something a little bit more forthright. But yes, it is a mixture of all of that.
All of the things.
So a very, very big welcome to all of our new listeners on this show. At the end of last week's show, we asked whether you guys wanted a longer show.
Or maybe shorter or
maybe shorter, how we were going.
Yes, and then we did realise that it wasn't going to be a very representative sample because those who listen to the end are probably those who like a longer show. So we got so many emails and messages and comments on YouTube and DM saying, no, not a longer show. We love it. We need more of you. If not, like, why don't we have more episodes?
Indeed. Yeah. And that is a very good question and one that I got asked personally by a gentleman in an elevator. I was at an event and he said, "Are you the journos lady?"
The journos lady? Are you one of them?
I was like, I'm not sure how to answer that, but I think so. Yeah. And he said, "I love that show, but you guys need to do more than one episode a week."
Oh.
And I was like, okay, I'll take that as a compliment.
Did you say, bro, in the elevator, are you a paid subscriber?
I was like, pay me to do it.
Yeah, this costs money.
No, but I did say that it's coming.
Yes.
It's coming because something is coming down the pipeline, which is a new episode in your feed.
Very exciting.
And we're hoping every Saturday to do
not we are. You are.
Me am. That's a normal thing to say. I am. The plan is every Saturday you will have an episode of a little spin-off show I like to call Only Fran, which is only me talking about a big issue of the week. So it's a sort of a take or an explainer on something that has stood out to me that week.
Yeah, like an evolution of the Fran,
yes.
Franalysis.
Franalysis was not a real thing, but it could have been a real thing.
But there have been other Fran offshoots, haven't there?
There's been, no, but I did think of calling it Franifesto, which we also didn't work.
Yeah.
Fran Standing was the other one. And I could go on forever, but we have settled on Only Fran. And so we can expect that. You can expect that in your feeds every Saturday. Fingers crossed.
Very
if there's
exciting.
enough to talk about, which sadly I think there is. Yes.
And to be fair, this was a hard show to start. Like, this is a hard show to do. I had to say to Jan yesterday, I was like, I don't know. I'm so overwhelmed by the news and our role in having to analyse it. I don't know if I can start. And just to kind of wind back on the weekend, it was my daughter's birthday party on Saturday and I was away from my phone for a few hours. And then when I picked up my phone, I'm like, oh, okay. The U.S. and Israel are attacking Iran. And just for that one moment, I wished I had a different life. Like, I wish I cared less.
Yeah.
I wish I could just focus on getting the ice cream off the couches and I wanted my world to be so small.
Yeah.
Because I just felt this absolute dread and fear of what was going to come next.
It's like anytime you're in the present moment, you sort of lose yourself and then you're just reminded, oh, right, this big heavy thing that is happening. Kind of outside of our control. And I also just want to say, like, this is hard. A lot of people are finding this hard. I mean, Antoinette, we're both Lebanese, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, Lebanon's getting bombed right now.
I've got family who've had leaflets dropped to evacuate their house in Beirut.
There you go. Lebanon's getting dropped. Lebanon's getting bombed. Iran's getting bombed. Israel's getting bombed. And, you know, however you feel about any of this, it's really hard to be dealing with the uncertainty of it all at the very least. That said, we must face it.
Yes.
We must talk about it. We must analyse and critique it so we feel a little bit more sane.
Yes, and we decided this week that we're going to just jump in. We're going to do our big chat, which we usually leave to the second half of the show. We're going to look at Iran, looking at the media coverage. We know it's a fast and urgent sort of story.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get onto our nose.
Yeah. And I think what's important for us is just to be able to, again, when a story is unfolding, to be able to kind of set the scene from the beginning.
Yes.
And have a look at the way in which the narrative is being framed and why that might be setting the tone for things to come.
Yep.
After that, your no?
Yeah, so my no goes to the imminent purchase of Warner Brothers. That includes CNN. It looks like that's going to be going to the billionaire Ellison family. And I guess I have multiple no's within it. No to Trump meddling with the sale because that sale almost went to Netflix. Also, just a big fat no to the Ellisons' growing media empire and what that's going to continue to do to journalism in the US, given they are very cozy with Trump. Anyway,
okay.
So many no's and so much to unpack there.
It's the human centipede of no's.
Oh, it's awful.
I am going to be a counterweight to that. And my no, I think, is actually a yes to the article that appeared in The Good Weekend over the weekend about Kim Williams, the chairman of the ABC. It's a yes to the article. I will explain why, but there is a no embedded within that yes, which I think is a no to Kim Williams and some of the things that the article reveals about him and what that has to do with your case specifically. And a couple of yeses. My yes goes to some very humane coverage of the women and children currently stuck in a Syrian refugee camp, having married ISIS fighters. That coverage comes from The Guardian. I'm going to talk about why that particular coverage is important now, given something in particular happened on Monday. I'll unpack that a little bit later in my yes.
Yeah, and I've got a great yes. I think it was as much a treat for me as I hope it's going to be a treat for the Editorial. It's from an independent newsletter in London that holds a property mogul accountable and potentially saves a whole bunch of people from homelessness. So we'll get to that.
That sounds like a Disney film.
I know,
that
right?
Sounds like the logline of a Disney.
It feels like
independent journalist holds a property mogul to account.
It feels like there needs to be a princess and a carpet and a few things involved.
Yeah.
We will unpack that later in the show.
Okay, great. But in the meantime, let us kick off with, I think, the most relevant and urgent chat of the day, which is the US and Israel attacking Iran and the Australian government response and the way large sections of the Australian media responded to it and the sort of narrative formation that's come from
and
that.
endorsed it.
And endorsed
it. There's a mounting death toll across various countries. The most is in Iran, including Iran's leader, Khomeini. At least 100 schoolgirls were killed when a school was hit. But there are also casualties in Lebanon and in Israel and in Qatar and Oman and Iraq and Kuwait and Bahrain, as well as US troops. And I think I was going to, for a moment, take note of the fact that there were mixed reactions among Iranians to the US and Israel bombing and also killing the leader. The diaspora is not homogenous. You probably saw images of some Iranians assembling, large groups of Iranians assembling in Australia and celebrating. They despised who they saw it as an oppressive leader. There were also people who were mourning both in Iran, people wanting to hold vigils and memorials. Some people loathed him, some people hate him.
And
there's
people
a plethora.
Just skeptical of US intervention in anything. So there's a plurality of thoughts and feelings here. Look, frankly, I'm not here to police the Iranian diaspora's feelings about anything, to be honest. No. And that's not really what this show is about. We're going to stick to the media coverage of it.
Yes, and how media narratives are taking hold.
Yeah. So a slight preface. We were both journalism students in 2003 when the US invaded Iraq. And the reason why I bring that up early in the show is because I think we lived through that propaganda, this kind of idea that, no, we're going to topple a very bad person and we're going to install democracy in Iraq. And I feel like...
And there were people celebrating. There were Iraqis celebrating.
Definitely.
When Saddam Hussein was killed,
The point, yes, some indeed. It feels like there's a blueprint for this moment that we would do well to heed the lessons of. And we can't help but notice in this moment very similar rhetoric happening really from day dot, from the start.
Yeah. So Saturday night local time, when I pick up my phone and I see that the US and Israel are bombing Iran, very quickly after, Trump releases an 8-minute video. He says, our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats. He's talking about a so-called imminent nuclear threat. And to quote him, finally, to the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. And automatically I was like, I have heard that before.
I do want to bring George Bush in up here, up the top. This was him in his 2003 statement, because, of course, he did an address to the nation when the US invaded Iraq. He said, "We come to Iraq with respect for its citizens, for their great civilization, and for the religious faith they practice. We have no ambition in Iraq except to remove a threat and restore control of that country to its own people." So extremely similar-ish rhetorics there, that this is about the people of Iran.
We care so much about the people, guys. We're just here to help. We're going to help you take your country back. We've got no interest. We're just the good guys. They are the bad guys. We are the good guys.
Yeah. So you'll have to excuse us if we're the skepticism in your voice it's simply dripping.
Because it's
and I mean, who can blame you? Like I said, we have a blueprint here.
Yeah, and the first bit of analysis I saw, because I immediately switched the television on and it set the bar high. It was John Lyons on ABC News Channel. He was commenting on the Australian government's statement. So Albanese, Richard Marles and Penny Wong put out a joint written statement. They were the first Western country to be like, yep, we back what Israel and the United States are doing. We're backing these attacks. And so let's take a listen to Lyons, because he immediately saw red flags and he wasn't buying it.
Another interesting thing about Anthony Albanese, Penny Wong and Richard Marles' statement, that first sentence, Australia stands with the brave people of Iran in their struggle against oppression. To me, that is political propaganda.
Says it straight away.
What they actually mean. They don't say it, but what that sentence should say, if they're being accurate, if the Prime Minister of Australia is telling the truth, it should say Australia stands with Israel and the US in their new war on Iran. So that is absolute, in my assessment, political propaganda.
So he's very forthright.
Immediately calling out the language, that it's political propaganda and that it's dishonest.
He does go on to say that he doesn't believe that this is about Iran's nuclear capabilities, which I have to say makes a fair bit of sense to me, because if you go on the White House website, just whitehouse.gov, you will find a press release dated June 2025 titled "Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated and suggestions otherwise are fake news."
Yeah.
So for all of this talk about this is about Iran's nuclear capabilities, I'm just curious, didn't you say they were obliterated 8 months ago?
Yeah.
Are they obliterated or not?
Then Lyons also calls out the inconsistent rhetoric, because he's like, well, the line coming from the US and Israel is this imminent threat because of nuclear.
And bad man, and we must free the people.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have in Australia's statement kind of like banging on about everything Iran has done, he says, since 1983. John Lyons says they start listing everything Iran has done since 1983. They're the real bad guy. And also making it about this urgency about the two anti-Semitic attacks that Mossad and the Australian government concluded on Australian soil were from Iran. But then Lyons again makes the point, but hold a second, isn't this about the nuclear weapons and freeing the Iranian people? Like, your message is inconsistent.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it, and your message is inconsistent.
What is this about?
Yes.
Exactly, is my question, which you would think the Prime Minister would address in his first press conference. I did not watch it. You watched it. And then you texted me and you're like, am I going insane? Which is a perennial text that I get from you. And my answer is probably. We're all going collectively insane, are we not? Because you were like, I just need you to hear the first question that was asked to the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
This is the first question of the first press conference given by the first world leader to support these strikes, right?
I was like, I'm losing my fucking mind, Jan. Please listen to this. Tell me if I'm going nuts.
Yeah, so you want a second opinion? Well, we want a third, fourth and fifth opinion from all of our listeners. So here's the first question.
Is there a moral case for this intervention and supporting Iranians who are risking their lives for democracy? You know, do you think we should be doing more to support the resistance there and you know the work to overthrow the revolutionary guard?
Well, that is a matter for the Iranian people.
I'm going to stop it there.
Yep.
I was like, what is that question?
Yeah.
There's no legal justification for what you're doing, which we'll get to in a moment. So let's just create a moral panic and create a moral urgency to go in and do more. It's just like, you know what?
Yeah.
Bombing the kids, the girls' school wasn't enough. We should be doing more to be the good guys.
Yeah, because at this point, that's materially what had happened. The girls' school had been bombed. We didn't know how many children at this point were dead, but it did seem like carnage. And the first question to the Prime Minister is, shouldn't we be doing more? Which, you know, I'm not saying that that's not a sure, that's a question. It's like the first question out the gate.
The next question was like, was this attack legal? Are you worried that this might erode the rules-based order? And then there was
he said what?
That's a matter for the United States.
Oh my God. They've got their lines, don't they? The Labor PR key spin doctor is like, all right, here's what we're going to say.
Yeah.
We're going to say that anybody asks you about international law, you go, well, that's a matter for the United States.
Yeah.
Because Penny Wong was on, I mean, she did all of the breakfast shows on Monday, of course. Sunrise and Today didn't ask her about the legalities of it, but James Glenday, to his credit from the ABC, did. And she repeated that very line. And there was this, what I thought was quite a good back and forth between the two of them. Credit to Glenday.
Just to the question about legality, though, because I think a lot of people will be looking back through statements made by you and the Prime Minister and others from the time of the Iraq War and thinking, what's the legal justification under international law for this action by America and Israel?
Well, first, one of the distinctions between Iraq and now is that we are not participating in these strikes.
Just endorsing
That's the
them.
first point I'd make.
Yet.
The second is what I've said, is that the legal basis of this is for the United States and Israel to explain.
I shouldn't laugh.
Is it? No, you shouldn't laugh because it's not funny, but you have to laugh because you'll go insane.
It's like, we don't know if it's legal. Like, it's just like having a criminal mate commit a crime going, I don't know if what he did was a crime, but I just endorse it. Okay? But I just endorse it and back it. But it's up to him if it's a crime. Ask him if it's a crime, but hey, I back it.
Yeah. Let's keep playing.
But if it is illegal and you're not sort of taking a position, why wouldn't Australia just come out and say it, that the rules-based order is not being respected?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're obviously not party to the intelligence that the United States and the Israelis are referencing in their decisions. That is why it is for them to explain the legal basis of this.
Oh, here we go. It's for them to, it's like, listen, we were the first people to come out and support this. We don't know if it's legal or not.
We don't know the detail.
Yeah. The matter that we threw our support behind is not a matter for us. And of course, that was a line that Albanese then repeated on 7:30 that evening, which to her credit, Sarah Ferguson opened with that question of legality and did press him on it. And he just basically said it's a matter for the US and we don't have access to that intelligence. But apparently we don't need access to that intelligence or to verify that this complies with international law to be the first country to back it.
Yeah, so it's clearly in breach of US law because Trump didn't go and seek approval from Congress. And under international law, like they talk about like this is preemptive, like this is a preemptive strike. Preventative war doesn't have a legal basis under international law. You can't forcibly remove a regime because that goes against state sovereignty. You can't be like, you know, he's an evil, horrible, repressive leader. That doesn't mean you can just go in and bomb the shit out of it and say we're here to liberate the people. And our government would be aware of that, but they backed it anyway, but they're pretending that they're not aware of it. And any kind of international law expert worth their salt has come out immediately and said, hey, this is how it breaches and why.
I just want to tell you something else that struck me about the Penny Wong interview with James Glenday. This was just a moment before they had that interaction that we played. She was talking about Iran under the regime, and she said that this is a country that has, contrary to international law, because now she cares very much about international law and she's across it, continued with its nuclear program, even though the White House says it doesn't have nuclear capabilities anymore. Anyway, question mark. And she goes on to say, and refused to enable the international nuclear body, the International Atomic Agency, to do inspections.
I'm actually having like deja vu of the worst kind. I mean, did she go through John Howard's Iraq war notes and find some of those lines? I'm like, where can I get some inspiration?
I mean, I think so, because anyone old enough, which you don't have to be that old, no offense to us, to remember the rhetoric around the Iraq war, the precursor or the justification was that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
And he wasn't allowing
the weapons inspectors in. He wasn't allowing the UN weapons inspectors into the facilities. And then next minute, cut to Hans Blix, remember him? That's a name I haven't said for years, saying they found no weapons of mass destruction and actually this entire war has been illegal.
Yeah, illegal, based on a lie, killed up to 1 million Iraqis, absolutely destabilised the country, the economy. We're here to give democracy and liberation to the people of Iraq. We've seen this act before.
Those
We've seen the devastation.
They are banging now. And like I said, there's lessons to be learned. I don't know if we're taking the right lesson away from that.
Which is exactly why you say we're old enough to remember. Like pretty much anybody in a middle or senior editorial position at a media organisation is also old enough to remember the Iraq War, which is why I decided to go through all of the major media outlets' opinion pages or their editorials, the positions that they held, to be like, what positions are we going to take straight out the bat? Because that often will set the tone of the narrative of what's to come. So I went through the ABC, SMH, The Age, The Guardian, AFR, the Telly, the Australian.
Yeah, okay, let's go through
all of them. And boy, do I need some therapy now. And this is how I'm going to present them. I'm going to present them via a what the fuck-a-meter, from the least worst to the absolute, what the fuck am I reading?
Okay.
And I have to put it out there. I implore you to go and check them out for yourself. This is my reading and, my analysis of it. Okay. So the least what the fuck, the most sane to me goes to Crikey. And it comes from its editor, Bernard Keane. And these, I should also say, were
political
all within,
editor Bernard Keane.
Yeah, political editor. These were all within the first 48 hours. So absolutely sets the tone. Anthony Albanese's transformation into Deputy Sheriff John Howard is complete.
Oh, there you go. You asked the question earlier, is Penny Wong getting her talking points from John Howard? It would seem so.
Yeah. And so he says, in dismissing international law and supporting yet another Western military attack on a Middle Eastern country, Anthony Albanese has completed his transformation into John Howard.
Mm-hmm. Crikey also did have another op-ed in the first 24 to 48 hours, which was from an Iranian doctor in Perth, and it was titled U.S. Intervention in Iran is not benevolent, but Iranians do not have the privilege of choice. And this gave a little bit of insight into, why foreign intervention is necessary or needed or welcomed, why some people are welcoming it. But I found it to be quite measured.
Yeah.
And it made sense.
And look, and I like the way he framed it. He was like, if you've been on, a cancer patient on death row for 47 years, likening it to the people of Iran, and somebody gave you some treatment option that is going to probably have a lot of side effects.
Yeah.
Some people would take that treatment option.
But it's not the status quo.
Yeah, some people would take that treatment option. And I thought, you know what? Cool. I thought that was an interesting perspective. The first opinion piece commissioned by The Guardian was to an international law professor, which I thought was, decent. Australia's timid response to the US and Israel's attack on Iran risks being seen as complicity. It's by someone called Donald Rothwell. Yep. It is up to countries like Australia to stand up against aggression and make its position clear in support of international law. Very sensible.
That's a very Guardian take.
Yeah.
Yep. The Herald's View comes in next on the Crayometer, which is still down the lesser end.
Yeah. I just know how much you love the Herald's View. That's why I chuckled.
I fucking love the Herald's View because the Herald's View is just, here is the Herald stating an observation.
Yeah, like a basic observation.
The Herald stating things as it has done with its op-ed, Iran airstrikes create a world of uncertainty.
Oh.
And it's like, yes, they certainly do. But I do want to be fair to the Herald because they did mention the killing of dozens of schoolgirls. They did mention the, questionable legal status of this, and they mentioned how Trump said that he'd obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities last year. So all of that was mentioned, but it just felt like, I'm sorry, what is your view on all of this?
And that's when I read it, as I read all of those points, I was like, okay, he's a bit like, it's a building block. He's like one block of information, block. And I thought they were building to something. And then it just gets to the end and going, and all of this is just uncertain. And I was like, this is not a building block. You have just got blocks and assembled them right next to each other. You're like, here are the blocks, the end.
Yes. But as far as op-eds go, it
certainly wasn't fucking batshit crazy like some of them.
No, it wasn't. The Age also had their first op-ed from Kylie Moore Gilbert, who is the woman that was imprisoned in Iran. I think she spent over 2 years in a prison there.
Yeah, she was accused of espionage, something she denies.
I mean, I thought it was an interesting choice. They could have commissioned an Iranian person to speak about Iran in the same way that Crikey did.
Yeah, so the first external commission was to Kylie Moore Gilbert, but it was the headlines like why Iranians are celebrating being bombed. And I just found it
okay.
I was like,
we're climbing up on the meter. Next.
At this point, we're in the middle of the pack, and I think Patricia Karvelas' analysis on ABC's website online comes in tie or equal place with Kylie Moore Gilbert's piece. And it's called PM's Swift Support for US Israel Strikes on Iran Show How Times Have Changed. have to say, John Lyons had set the bar high, calling bullshit, pushing back on the government's propaganda and essentially saying that these lines and cues come directly from the US and Israel, from their interests. And the first third of the piece, so half of the first third was just verbatim Albanese. He was just like, and Albanese said this, and he said this, and he said this. So there were 3 straight paragraphs of just his justification and backing an unlawful war after he's been talking about like turning the temperature down locally, blah, blah, blah. And then the paragraph where the first kind of bit of analysis comes in is context matters here because Iran directed at least 2 attacks on Australian soil in 2024. And the Prime Minister has hardened his response and backed the US action. And I was like, yeah, but I just heard like some really astute analysis from John Lyons kind of going.
Yeah, that they're throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And
it stuck and she's running with it.
Right, yeah.
And she just freaking ran with it. And I was like, but hold a second, isn't it about nuclear weapons and freeing the Iranian people?
Right, yeah.
Which is it?
Yeah, which is it? Mm-hmm.
So
we're still in the middle of the pack here, by the way.
That's right,
friends. Yeah. Because next we go to the Sunday Telegraph with the opinion why the United States had no choice but to strike Iran.
I love it when things are so clear. It's just like, you know what? We just had to kill people. We got no choice, man.
Yes. Written by a man called Arsen Ostrovsky, who is a lawyer and the head of the Sydney office of the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council. And he says the threat to the US was real, imminent and growing by the day. Intelligence confirmed that Iran was developing intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the continental United States. I thought that the White House said it had obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities and anyone saying anything different is fake news. And I also heard Anthony Albanese say that he's got no access to US intelligence, but this guy
does.
Seems to have access that intelligence has confirmed Iran was developing intercontinental ballistic missiles. Anywho.
I know, he spends a lot of the article talking about international law. And no, it's not in breach of international law.
Okay.
And this is why. And it just so happens that his reading of international law is at odds with everybody else's reading of international law.
Okay.
So I was just like, okay, now where my what the fuck
is like, ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling.
It's going up.
Let's go up a rung on the ladder with the Australian. The headline's relatively tame-ish. Donald Trump's actions will have consequences beyond Iran.
Yeah, that almost feels like a Herald's view. Doesn't it? Just like, let's state the obvious.
It's like, but where the Herald will just tell you another thing that it observed, the Australian just goes, cuckoo-ca-cha! Okay, what does the Australian have to say?
Okay, Donald Trump deserves high praise for doing what none of his weak-kneed predecessors in the White House, notably including Barack Obama and John Biden, were prepared to do for decades, and that was to act decisively with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to decapitate the regime. Which, again, I shouldn't laugh.
I know. I'm laughing at the fact that you called Joe Biden John Biden, but anyway, that just undercut that whole thing. It was terrible.
Like, let me do it again.
Nah, if you're listening, you guys should just rewind it and listen
to me call him John Biden.
Listen to how terrible that take is, which is basically that, like, praising Donald Trump. He's done it.
Yeah.
He's a man of courage. He's done what no other man before him has been able to do.
Yeah.
Very good. Up next, the West Australian. Australia's not immune to Ayatollah's evil. That was their first op-ed out the gate. I'm just going to leave that there.
I just love like cherry picking who's evil, especially over the past, like the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, let's just cherry pick who's evil and which law and order and democracy and human rights, like when it matters and how it matters and how we determine who a bad guy is and a good guy is.
I mean, this is all culminating in a point. So I'm just bear with us. I make no commentary on who is evil and who is not evil. Everyone's fucking evil.
Yeah,
okay?
that's right.
They're all fucking evil. But that is the West Australians. And in the top spot, in the top spot, there's a double whammy.
Yeah. So the AFR,
the Australian Financial Review.
The Australian Financial Review has the 2 top spots, as in the 2 what the fuck.
Dude, the AFR on opinions, like it's the little engine that just shouldn't.
The AFR's view. This is the paper's view. Rocky, bloody road ahead in Iran.
Yep.
But this part of the AFR's view. An unholy alliance of Islamist fellow travellers and progressive, useful idiots, I've heard that term before, in the West, motivated by hatred of Trump.
Just hate him.
and reflexive anti-US and anti-Israel sentiment.
Just reflexive, just a reflex. Doesn't come from anywhere.
Anything.
Nope.
Will oppose the effort to topple the world's most repressive theocracies, which systematically deny women and LGBTQI people their rights.
Okay, the women and the LGBTQI. Okay, that should be a massive alarm bell.
This unholy alliance of Islamist fellow travellers and progressive useful idiots. And I'm like, what? This is the AFR.
Yeah. But that, exactly. It's the AFR. They always do this. They have the worst opinions. And that, believe it or not, was not the worst opinion that they published, because they published a syndicated column from an American columnist by the name of Bret Stephens, and the column was titled "Trump and Netanyahu are doing the free world a favour."
Jesus Christ.
Hey, you guys, this is a favour for all of you. Oh, I'm sorry. Did, 100 little girls get killed in a bombing? Yeah. Did countless people get killed in Lebanon, in Israel, in Bahrain, in all the countries that you mentioned at the top of the show? They sure did. But you know what?
But they're delivering freedom, democracy.
And this is just a favour for all of you. And interestingly, this is the same Bret Stephens who last year wrote "The Case for Overthrowing Maduro."
Yeah, Venezuela's leader. Yeah.
20 years on, I don't regret supporting the Iraq war. Excellent. Thank you, Bret.
Well, at least he's a consistent warmonger.
He is indeed. So, you could just imagine what this take was going to be. Extremely hawkish, because this brother has form. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. Je te présente to you the Australian media 24 to 48 hours after one of the gravest escalations that we've seen in, I don't even know what to call it, the fucking conflict, the genocide, the international turmoil. What is the takeaway here? If you were just a consumer of media and you wanted to canvass the Australian media landscape, truly.
The takeaway is it's either we have to do it back or we have to do it.
Yeah.
We just kind of have to do it.
Yeah.
Only at one point, at The Guardian having an international law expert going, we should respect international law. But off the back of international law being ignored for 2.5 years with the genocide.
That's so prosaic.
Yeah.
It's almost managerial.
Yeah.
There's no one being like, oh, my God, this feels upside down.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is inhumane. Yeah. This is not bringing peace. You don't bomb your way into peace. Crikey went the hardest.
Crikey.
And the smallest kind of mainstream, of the lot, the smallest outlet went the hardest.
Mm. There were some politicians that went really hard, though, on that point of you can't bomb people into peace, and this is no good what we're doing, and we really shouldn't be doing this. We really should be thinking twice. There was a politician who was making a lot of sense. I want to read out to you some of the things that this particular politician has said, and I want you to guess who it is.
Okay.
All right. Politician in the lower house. There's a clue. They say, "I have news for the Prime Minister, the man who has nothing but a plan for war. The aftermath of a war needs to be considered. The hawks who want to destroy the regime in place from outside have no plan for the future." Any idea who that might be?
I don't know, someone from the Greens or an independent? Or?
It's not someone from the Greens. It is not someone. I'll give you another one. "I do not believe it is in Australia's national interest to be joining any military action that would undermine the legitimacy and supremacy of international law. Any US-led military action not sanctioned by the United Nations would be illegal under international law."
I don't know.
It sounds like David Pocock, doesn't it?
That's what I was about to say.
It's not David Pocock.
You said it's not an independent, it's not a Green, so I don't know who it is.
Okay, last one. This is the last one that I'm going to read.
Oh my God, okay.
"There is no UN mandate here. We are not bringing peace. We are invading a sovereign country and making war. This is an unjust war without UN backing. Our government is about to redefine us in the eyes of the world as willing backers of US militarism." What does that say about the sort of nation that we are? We are a multicultural nation, and yet here we are sending a message, particularly to the Islamic world, that we are part of the old white Anglo-Christian order, and we have the President of the United States who invokes God in defending his government's actions. Thoughts?
It sounds like a sensible person.
It's Anthony Albanese.
No, it's not.
It's Anthony Albanese, circa 2003. And we've been talking about Iraq war comparisons throughout this whole bit, haven't we? Well, how's that for a comparison? Hang on, one more. While I do recognise the importance of our cultural, political and economic relationship with the United States, I believe that we must continue to tell them that unilateralism can never be the basis of a satisfactory world model, and that preemptive action should not involve the use of military power. Question, Anthony, did you continue to tell them now that you're Prime Minister? Did you tell them that, or did you just say, "Oh, don't worry, we'll be the first to come out and support you, despite not having any access to your intelligence, not being a big player in the Middle East.
Isn't that what happens? I'm never going to do it in his defense, but isn't that what happens when you get power? It's not as people say, it's not as clear. You've got to negotiate. You've got to seed ground. You've got to work on allyship. You've got to work on relationships. You can be, idealistic, and when you're in the opposition. So he's in opposition in the lower house in 2003.
You should become a spin doctor. Watch him say that the next time he's asked about his comments. Well, being a backbencher is very different to being the Prime Minister because you have to concede and you have to do deals and you just stay consistent, bruh. Do you care about international law or not? Do you care about human rights or not? Do you care about the world order or not? Do you care about US militarism or not?
Look, if you piss me off too much, I'll just leave journalism and become like a spin doctor for the government.
Oh,
I'll
really?
No! As if they'll have me. Could you imagine being, hello, Anthony Albanese, would you like me to work for you? Imagine how the conversation would go.
That's so funny. You're just in the room being like, oh, I don't reckon that's going to work, mate. You're
you sound like a dickhead.
Yeah, fucking hell. Let's go to our nose, which actually is a bit of a yes.
Okay, good
Can
work,
I start?
Jan.
Thank you.
You are evolving.
You see, I've been bringing the yeses and now my no's are yes.
Yep.
So look, my no this week goes to Kim Williams, the chairman of the ABC. A profile piece about Williams appeared in The Good Weekend, and it was written by Jackie Maley, and it was not a bad piece.
She's a good writer. Jackie Maley is a good writer.
I think it's a yes from me for that piece.
Okay, for Jacqueline Maley.
For the piece, yeah, because I thought it was subtly revelatory, and I thought it was comprehensive. However, one point. Where I thought this piece fell over was I don't think he interrogated enough why he didn't just draw a line under your case when he came in as chair.
He had the perfect PR moment to
be like, freebie.
Like, new management, new year, new this, we're going to do it differently. They were the old guard. It's actually like it writes itself, even if it's disingenuous.
Yes.
It writes itself. Like you could literally draw a line through it, end it, and say, we are the good guys. Guys, we're going to do things differently.
Didn't happen on my watch. No, this could be very bad for the ABC. We don't want it to get to the federal court. Sort it out. And while I think maybe the piece didn't really hit the nail on the head or wasn't, overt in addressing that, I think it subtly revealed why he may not have.
Yeah.
And why he made the decisions that he made. And that has to do with another scandal which was canvassed quite well in the piece.
Yes.
Which was Kim Williams making the fucking inexplicable decision, again, which is explained, to intervene on behalf of a comedian named Ostentatious.
Yeah, Media Watch did really good work in unveiling that.
Oh.
Really good work.
Really good work. Anyway, just the top line background is there was a comedian that went straight to Kim Williams. His name is Ostentatious. He was famous in the 80s. Anyway, I'd never really heard of him prior to this. Kim Williams intervened no less than 5 times on his behalf to get him on ABC radio stations to promote his upcoming show. Anyway, Maley asks him about this. And she notes that his answer begins with, she asks him about, well, why did you intervene for this guy? Why did you do it? And she notes that he answers like this. He says, I don't want to fan the flames of issues of very deep division in the community over matters to do with October 7, the Israeli response, and what has happened in Gaza. I think whenever people talk about it, it gets mixed into a miasma of other matters.
What?
I know. It's like, I'm sorry, why did
you intervene? Why did you overstep your role?
So already that's telling. It's like, clearly there's something else going on here. This is a much bigger story. He then goes on to say, I don't know him. He's not a friend, never has been a friend. He went on about the ABC being, and this is why it's awkward to talk about because I don't want to fan any flames. Kim Williams says, he said the ABC was profoundly anti-Semitic and I was just focused on getting emotion out of the room. He got spooked. He got spooked by one guy who alleged that the ABC was anti-Semitic. Now, arguably, this is the thing that the first chair, your case,
Ida Buttrose got spooked.
But even worse, because this is one guy who had a hit 40 years ago. It wasn't a letter writing campaign. It wasn't done by a WhatsApp group called Lawyers of Israel.
I want a bit more airtime.
Exactly.
For my show.
Exactly.
Which a lot of comedians don't get airtime for their show.
And the piece had also said that there was a former News Corp editor who said that this comedian had levelled an accusation of anti-Semitism against him.
At News Corp?
At News Corp. Because he refused to hire him for a party. And he said, I was worried that Gutman, who is Ostentatious, would ignite a huge public debate about anti-Semitism on the ABC. which I happen to firmly believe is utterly untrue. So you're worried about this public debate about anti-Semitism.
Based off one nobody.
Based off one guy, but you're not worried about this public debate of the ABC caving to the pro-Israel lobby.
And like wavering in its independence and breaching workplace law.
This is so, you know, but
that's the telling part, right? And I think that's the beauty in the piece, in that he kind of starts to show his hand.
Yeah, exactly. And he says that he has a profound, long-standing engagement with Judaism. He says, I have a continuing, distinct empathy with the spirit of the Jewish religious practice and ethical precepts. And that I don't think Netanyahu is part of that very long, deep history. I think he's an aberrant creature, which means he's an aberration. He's, you know, a one-off, something like that. I think he's frankly an aberrant creature in the history of Israel. And then he says this, but that's a very inappropriate thing for me to say, and I shouldn't really be saying it. You're fired for having a political opinion. And this is the chairman of the ABC, and he can say that, apparently, and knows that he shouldn't be saying that, but says it anyway.
No, but also, why can't we have, the court found you can have a fucking opinion.
I mean, I
have lots of political opinions about Trump and other leaders, and so do most people.
I'm just showing the hypocrisy here.
So, of course, then it gets picked up by Media Week and the Daily Mail, which, shock horror, nailed the headline, which was ABC chair Kim Williams makes jaw-dropping comments about Israeli leader just 2 years after one of its presenters was unlawfully sacked for spouting her own political beliefs.
Thank you. That's what I said. I just said the Daily Mail headline. Am I in agreement with the Daily Mail?
Can I just jump to one thing? Despite clearly how spooked, all of this evidence of how spooked he is, David Marr jumps in, former host, and is quoted in this article.
That's right, he does.
He's a former host of Media Watch. And he says, well, Kim is not the least bit afraid of Murdoch, and the days of being belted around by lobbyists are over. It's a big shift at the ABC. What exactly gives you that indication?
Well, maybe the days of being belted around by lobbyists are over, but certainly the days of being belted around by, I don't know, a comedian from the 80s do not appear to be over.
It's just a wild statement to make so confidently, given the facts at hand.
I mean, I hope he's right.
Yeah, but like,
what's the indication?
Based on what?
Yeah, indeed. Anyway, there you go. That's what I thought it revealed about Kim Williams, why he was so doubling down on your case, because he seems much more afraid of accusations of anti-Semitism than he is afraid of accusations that the ABC kowtowed to the pro-Israel lobby. Both are bad, but he seems to be, have put much more weight in one over the other.
Okay, so I have a dual no.
Oh, good.
Because my no goes to the imminent purchase of Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns CNN as well as the film studios. And that purchase seems all but done by the Ellison family. They are billionaires who have close ties to Trump. I'll get a little bit more about who the Ellisons are in a little bit, but also to Trump for bullying and meddling of the media, which we know we've seen he's been doing. It's a hallmark for an authoritarian, not a democratic leader. Before I get into who the Ellisons are and their growing media empire and what Trump and his team are believed to have done and why this is bad for journalism and cinema, some of you may be thinking, hold a second, wasn't Netflix going to buy Warner Brothers?
Mm-hmm.
So the Netflix...
That was the plan.
That was the plan. So the Netflix takeover looked like it was a done deal, other than the last-minute kind of regulatory approval, which you need to get, because the board accepted late last year an $82.7 billion offer. That was in December. But late last week, the streamer walked away. They weren't going to match Paramount Skydance's $111 billion offer. They said because the price was too high, but that might not be the full story.
Right.
So Paramount and Skydance are owned by the Ellisons.
Yes. So Netflix comes in, they say, we want to offer this much. It looks like a done deal. Paramount and Skydance were like, no, at the final 11th hour, we are going to offer this much, and Netflix walks away. So what exactly happened at the final 11th hour?
Okay. So we know there's been no secret that Trump doesn't like CNN. I'm pretty sure CNN inspired the kind of fake news tag, which he uses, the infamous fake news tag he uses all the time. And last December in a presser, when Trump was asked about CNN and the possibility of new owners, this is what Trump said.
So what do you want to know?
What changes do you want to see at CNN under new ownership?
Well, I'm not involved in that. I will be probably involved, maybe involved in the decision. It depends. You have some good companies bidding on it. I think the people that have run CNN for the last long period of time are a disgrace. I think it's imperative that CNN be sold.
So hang on a second. I'm not involved in that. I probably will be involved in that. I hate CNN. Is that a fair summation of what he just said?
Pretty much.
Great.
So fast forward 2 months, and what was expected to be a done deal with Netflix.
Yeah.
There were some figures online, some MAGA figures online, who criticised a Netflix board member. So early last week, some MAGA figures online had a problem with board member Susan Rice. Susan Rice happens to be, or she used to be, a national security advisor to Obama. And she was on a recent podcast. And she said things like, it's not going to end well for companies that take the knee to Trump. Right? So she's making criticism of media companies that take the knee to Trump. It's not going to end well for them. So this is a board member of Netflix, used to work for the Obama administration.
Okay.
So then Trump gets on social media posting that Netflix needed Susan Rice to go immediately. Like, get rid of her immediately or pay the consequences.
Right. So clearly here the Netflix is being framed as this liberal threat.
Yes.
It's got growing power. It should be curbed.
Yeah.
Because there was Ted Sarandos, who is the CEO of Netflix, or is he CEO or one of the, anyway, he was questioned by Republicans in February at this kind of antitrust hearing. And he was told basically that in no uncertain terms that streamers were overwhelmingly woke.
Yeah, that Netflix
and he had
in
to
particular.
deny it and, and said, like, we make programming for everyone across all forms of the political spectrum.
Yeah, so a few days before Netflix walked away from the bidding war, this same guy, Netflix CEO, Ted Sarandos, went to the White House to meet with Trump aides. And there are reports of him, media reports of him leaving in an angry huff. Nobody knows exactly what happened in the meeting. But then all of a sudden, Netflix has pulled out. So we know Trump's not happy with a board member. We know that Trump doesn't like CNN and he wants it in different hands. And we know that they think Netflix is too woke.
And that there's pressure being put on the CEO, which culminates in this meeting at the White House.
And then all of a sudden, Netflix is out. Again, we do not know the details. These are just the facts. So once the news broke that Paramount was going to seal the deal, here's Brian Stelter, and he's the chief media analyst for CNN, and here's some of his analysis.
We know that President Trump's taken a very personal interest in this particular deal, however. He has said that it's, quote, imperative that CNN be sold, given that he doesn't like the current owners of CNN. And he has met with the CEOs involved repeatedly. It's a big change from past presidents who have left the DOJ alone to this subject and let antitrust experts take the lead. Trump has been very involved. And so there's a lot more reporting to be done about what he has been doing in recent weeks when it comes to this deal. And I know people have understandable concerns about what an ownership change might mean for CNN. Paramount's a complicated place right now. It's a company where Stephen Colbert is being pushed out at CBS, but also where South Park skewers President Trump and where Jon Stewart still speaks truth to power, John Oliver as well. It's led by a CEO, David Ellison, who's worked hard to forge a relationship with Trump, but who also donated $1 million to Joe Biden's reelection campaign. So a lot more to come on the Paramount front.
Right. So what I'm getting from that analysis is that Trump is an aberrant creature. Let me use that word. In the sense that he's very interventionist here. Yeah. And unlike other presidents, as he says, hasn't left the DOJ alone and has a very hard hand with media companies that he hates and still like a bit of uncertainty about what's going to happen because they still have this program which skewers Trump and they still have that program which skewers Trump, but question marks around their future.
Yeah, I think he's sounding like he wants to be hopeful, but it's no secret that Trump wants to defang major news networks.
Yeah. Who are the, so the Ellisons?
Yes, let's talk about the Ellisons. Mm-hmm. So they are the driving force behind Paramount. So David Ellison is the CEO. But he is backed by the immense wealth of his father, Larry Ellison. Now, Larry is the co-founder of the software titan Oracle, and Dad Larry is also a friend and an advisor of the president. He is also the largest private donor to the IDF in the United States.
Yes, very big supporter of the Israeli Defense Force and
he's also,
Israel.
And he's got investments in X and Tesla, so presumably a relationship with Elon Musk.
In late 2025, we should say that the Ellisons bought Paramount, which owns the news network CBS.
Yes.
And they made a number of concessions to Trump in order to be able to do that.
Yes.
And, to get it passed through the kind of broadcast regulators and all of the rest of that. And what they did the minute that happened was they appointed an editor-in-chief named Barry Weiss. We haven't spoken too much about Barry on this podcast, but she is She left the New York Times, started her own thing, is a very kind of like woke, apostate, self-proclaimed proud Zionist, also loves Israel, and has earned the praise of President Trump. And there's been a lot of disquiet about that appointment.
Yeah,
and CBS.
We've seen editorial interference or heavy-handed editorial handling, accusations of shifting the network towards a Trump pro-bias. That included pulling a 60 Minutes segment on El Salvador because on Trump's deportation policy, demanding last-minute changes to other stories. And just a few weeks ago, Barry Weiss said there would be, and this is kind of indicative, there would be job cuts in news. And she announced the hiring of 18 paid commentators on subjects from national security to health and wellness. As she calls it, as part of an effort to widen the aperture of the stories we tell and the voices we listen to, which really just sounds like Fox Light. Less journalists, more opinion havers.
Well, do you know what that actually sounds like? It sounds like the Washington Post.
Yeah.
It sounds like what their editors and what Jeff Bezos said, that we want to follow the lead of our listeners and our readers, and we want to widen our remit.
Yeah.
From all things to health and wellness and science and technology and
But at the same time, they closed their bureaus.
Their foreign bureaus, that's right.
And so back to CNN for a second, considering the role CNN plays, it has a vast array of journalists around the country, a strong calibre of journalists around the world. And so obviously there is fear that they may follow that Washington Post model of being very inward-looking, very opinion-having, having very America first, and close some of those bureaus.
Yes.
Because you've gotten, you arguably get better coverage from CNN than other networks when it comes to foreign stories.
Right. Okay. So that's actually the context that all of this falls into, which is that like other networks ain't doing so good either. Other media organizations, so it's not like this one's aberrant. Like
oh my gosh.
if Donald Trump takes it, if the Ellisons take it over or whatever, it's not like, it's only one that's gone to, it's like they're going to own a stable of media outlets.
Yeah.
And it's going to follow a pattern.
And we're obviously focusing on the news media, but it has implication for Hollywood and film and streaming too. Because if the deal goes through, Hollywood tightens quite fast. One of the 5 major studios shifts under a shared ownership. So you have less studios. So streaming power consolidates. So output changes as well. So there are a lot of people in Hollywood who are not comfortable about this consolidation.
Okay, support independent media. Go to edmedia.com and subscribe. Please, God, subscribe to other independent media outlets as well, because this consolidation of power is quite terrifying. On that note, can we talk about the yeses, please?
Yes, we absolutely need to.
Thank you so much. My yes goes to The Guardian.
Okay. Guardian's gotten a couple of nods today.
I feel like The Guardian's got too many nods. I always say this. I've got some qualms with The Guardian.
Yeah.
We won't bring them up currently because I think they've done some good reporting on these so-called ISIS brides. And I should say, just at the top of the show, at the top of this bit here, I was on Tom Ballard's podcast, Serious Danger, last week, which you should check out. Shout out to him. That's a yes from me. But he mentioned rightly that he hates the term ISIS brides.
I won't use it.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's fair because it is in itself this kind of propaganda that is designed to pull focus away from the fact that they are Australian women and children.
Yeah.
So Serious Danger, a yes. Guardian's coverage of this is a yes. I'm going to come to the reason why in a second. Some very quick background here if you don't know what we're talking about.
Yes, I can do a bit of that background.
Go on, please.
So there are 34 Australian women and children who were trapped in a refugee camp in Syria. So the women left Australia. They went to Syria or Iraq and they married men over there who are, as it turns out, ISIS fighters.
Yeah, or were because some of the men are dead.
And some are dead.
Yeah.
And this has become a very politicised issue in Australia.
Extremely. And I want to give you an example of that. On Monday, the journalist Jason Koutsoukis, he writes for the Saturday paper, Schwartz Media, among other things, he asked the opposition leader Angus Taylor why another country should be responsible for Australian citizens. And Angus Taylor replied with something that I thought was quite telling. Here is what he said.
Can I finish? Are they another country's responsibility? You're an activist or a journalist. You need to make up your mind. Let me be clear.
Sounds familiar.
You need to make up your mind which one you are. Let's be clear about this. Let's be clear about it.
He sounds like Trump's press secretary.
I know. Thank you, Carolyn Leavitt. Are you an activist?
It's like, if we don't like a question you're asking, you're an activist.
You're an activist, exactly. So talking about how politicised this issue is getting, I mean, that's a very clear example of where the coalition plans to take it. Are you a journalist or an activist? Which brings me to my yes, which is why I think it's important now more than ever to provide the sort of coverage that The Guardian has in this case, which I think is quite humane. They solicited a Beirut-based journalist to go over to the camp and talk to the children. And they've got it posted on their Instagram and also on their website, and they did a full story podcast episode about it. But the minute that you hear the voices of the children, you are immediately reminded that they are two things. They are Australian because they have Australian accents, and they're children. They're children. And I just want to play you one example.
It's a beautiful country.
Talking about Australia.
There's a lot of parks and there's beaches, and I wanna go on the roller coaster and eat fairy floss and swim in the beach.
What about see a kangaroo?
Yeah, I also want to see kangaroos and many other animals.
And by that, I heard that you guys got to leave the camp a little bit on Monday.
Yeah. At that time, I was so happy we were leaving. But then when we turned around, I was so sad and upset. It was terrible.
These are innocent children. They're Australian children, and they have like Australian passports. There's no reason why they should not be able to come back to Australia.
And I mean,
we have an obligation to our citizens,
only
unless they've committed, like if they have committed a crime, or maybe they're fucking children. But you can't just be like, yeah, nah.
Well, I mean, apparently, not only can you just be like, yeah, nah, as both sides of both major parties are, you can just dismiss journalists asking the questions as activists to completely silence that point, which is what Angus Taylor did, and which is why the Guardian's journalism was very good this week. So that's my yes.
Okay. So my yes goes to independent local journalism taking on a billionaire and getting what looks like a pretty fast result. And this actually came as a tip.
Okay, the Disney film.
I know. And this
starring Selena Gomez.
And this comes as a tip from an Editorial member, Matthewette. I'm just going to read it out. Can I direct you to an amazing story showing the power of independent journalism? This investigation from London Centric that led to billionaire landlord Aziz Asif cancelling a planned mass eviction of tenants from property he owned. And I'm like, yes, you can give me that tip, please. And please draw that my attention. This piece was published in London Centric. It is a Substack newsletter which was launched by The Guardian UK's former media editor, a guy called...
The Guardian getting another little surreptitious shout out.
Well, a former Guardian.
Former Guardian, yep.
Jim Waterson. He's now got a few contributors. Anyway, and it was established to provide in-depth reporting on London City in particular.
Okay.
Here's the story. There's a billionaire landlord, Asif Aziz. He has a business called Criterion Capital, and he intends to move hundreds of Londoners, including some marking the month of Ramadan, from their homes. They all have eviction notices. Now, the reason that it's relevant that some of them are marking Ramadan is that this billionaire is Muslim, and he funded the city's Ramadan lights. And his family were there in the like London City going, I give back to the community.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm funding Ramadan lights. And the other thing to point out that these are like mass no-fault evictions of private tenants. Like they haven't missed out on their rent. They haven't damaged any properties. They haven't done anything wrong. And the sense is in this story that these were done urgently because the government's going to bring in the Renters' Rights Act in May, which is essentially the government. They're trying to beat the government clamping down on landlords and giving more people, autonomy.
I mean, that just sounds wild that they can do that. That they can just evict people en masse.
En masse. And there's particular, here's a little bit of the article. There's particular scorn for the contrast between the company's treatment of tenants and how the family present themselves in public, especially the declaration of patriarch Asif Aziz, that one of his main charitable objectives is tackling homelessness.
Okay. Yep. Hypocrisy there.
Anyway, and the politicians and the tenants and the councils didn't realise there were evictions. There were evictions of multiple buildings simultaneously because he wanted to make them temporary accommodation that would be for the government. So when the government pays at a much higher rate, so when they have to house people in out-of-home care, like foster kids or people leaving abuse or whatever, they would pay a premium. And so he wanted to get rid of kind of like private like homes so that he could make more money because the billionaire doesn't have enough money. Anyway, so then there was a follow-up article about the evictions being halted because there was political pressure from the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, because of this investigation. And then there were tenants that got knocks on the door going, oh, you know, that leaflet that you got dropped off, you don't have to leave now. You guys can stay. So it essentially looks like it's halted these mass evictions.
Right. Well, there's this bit here where in the piece they say politicians, tenants and councils did not realise the evictions were coordinated to take place across London rather than being isolated to individual buildings until we told them.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This story began with a single tip about evictions in one building.
Oh.
On a hunch, having reported on Aziz businesses for the past year, they sent a London-centric reporter and she spent a few days like door knocking, just like that old foot on the ground journalism, door knocking, speaking to people. So yeah, that's a yes to independent journalism, yes to boots on the ground, and yes to what looks like pretty swift accountability.
Okay, Larry Ellison, make the Disney movie for your streaming services.
Oh, because he would love a story about a billionaire being held accountable. Yes. That's really up his alley.
Indeed, indeed. Well, on that note, it brings us to the end of our show.
Yes.
Thank you, my friends, for staying all the way to the end. The majority of our listeners do, actually. I'm very, very proud to say.
And become a subscriber so that we can go and knock on people's doors and get more stories and hold billionaires accountable.
We're going to need a lot of money to be doing that. And look out for a little something dropping in your feed this weekend.
Yes, and there will be subscriber benefits with Only Fran as well. So an extra reason to get behind independent media.
That is all coming up for you in the next weeks and months. We'll have a little bit of a clearer plan that we will announce, but dropping something this weekend. Look out for it. Only Fran on Saturday. Catch you soon.
Bye, guys.